wanted to walk you through our art show before it was broken down today. We had our show a couple nights ago, and we usually don't leave it up, but this year I thought we'd give it a shot, leaving it up for at least a couple days. It's going okay. Some stuff is falling because we do use masking tape, because the boards that we use are not peg boards. But every year I fix things up, and I think next year I'll make it so that the show can stay up even longer. So I'm going to walk you through the show. I hope you enjoy. I'll probably be telling you all about projects as we go, the ones that maybe I didn't share in the past. This guy's healing nicely. I had to point it out. I mean, come on, seriously. Mr. Artie Show, thanks. All right. Alrighty, so here is the sign for when you came in. And then at the show, here was our welcome station, and you pay to get in. We do charge a small admission so that we could raise funds for future endeavors and to fix up our boards, as I said. And then here we had our compliment cards sold, and I'll tell you about those in a little bit. Here's our ceramics works from the year, just some of them. I posted pictures along the way on Instagram, so and on social media, so I probably won't show too much. So just some really cool stuff. We have our vases, was a good hit like this year. The pinch pot creations, where the students had to use a pinch pot, and then other methods, and whatever other methods, and then they had to use pinch pots in a creative way other than just a pot. So here's an example of the compliment cards. So we had clipboards, and then I had pre-printed these Post-its, and on a sheet of paper there you got 6 Post-its, and it was $2 a sheet, and you got to walk around and just leave compliments for the artists, and then that way we'll make sure that they get them. So here's some more. Love this piece. This was a really creative response to the project. The project was simply just slab and mold, and then they had some requirements. This is from last semester, but I believe it was like either elevation, additive, subtractive, and something else. So it was, this was him doing additive and then elevation. Really cool piece. So we're going to move on. So cute, little honey bear. And I always like this one. It looks like a tie. It's so fun. She got compliments too. Let's turn around. Sorry if this is like spinning around and around. Our vases this year, for one class, I believe I did white clay, and then for the other I did red, or maybe not. Maybe I did both in red. Oh, I can't remember. It was last semester. So here we had to make a little picture station for the principal's tee, and I designed it so that then we could repurpose it for the Artist in Bloom show, since it seemed to just really fit perfectly. Our club had made these little flowers, and we made this backdrop. There was a sign, it fell down, and it just said Artist in Bloom 2019, and it was like a nice little selfie station for people to take pictures. These are from my class, from my Exploring Art class, just a selection of masks. We did spirit animal masks, so they had to find out what their spirit animal was, and then incorporate something about their personality into a mask that also had elements of their spirit animal. So sometimes they're going to get a little creative. I love them. I love this project. It's so fun, and they really it challenges them. Exploring Art is a class that people take just to get the requirement. It's not really part of the art major track. So I was really happy and pleased with what happened. So we have a basketball for eyes. So it's just a really fun project. So when you enter the high school section, we have our graphic design. So this is taught by another teacher, our graphic design course. She is one of our other 2 art teachers in the department, and she teaches all digital now. It used to be that we had she would do less, some digital and some fine art, but now she's so requested that there's graphic design well, it's intro, and then there's graphic design 2, and we also have photography. So you'll see that along the windows. We had to put that somewhere else. And to the right of that, on the other side, these are the collisions and transitions pieces from my Art 3 class in the fall. And the collisions and transitions project, I never really explained it. Basically, we talked just about mark making. And with mark making, rather than it just being observational, which is something they were working in so much, we do so much observational. We talked about just the act of the mark first. What happens when you make a mark on the page, what kinds of marks you can make. It's more than just a line. And we also explored visual collisions, which would be high contrast, and then transitions, which would be gradations of moving in value. And we talked more about composition, and focusing, of course, on elements and principles. We always work those in. And they turn the corner. It's really fun to see them working on this. They get messy and they have to work on the ground. Some of them hang them up. Some of them come up with a very simple yet effective image. This one, I love the depth and the exploration, especially with the texture in that upper left-hand corner. And sometimes they try to work like little spheres and orbs. And one year it was like all swirls, there's like a trend that will start to kind of spread in the class. But this year it was interesting because everyone was different. Everyone was different. And this was just a selection of some of them. And over here I have the 3D Studios, our new course. So it was an explanation. It's humid in here and it's like woo, like falling down, but hopefully you can still see. So it just explains some of the materials that we worked with this semester. I have so much to say. It's been a fantastic semester. I don't want to have people drop off and not view the rest of the art show. That's my coffee. It's the morning. Because I'm talking so much about 3D, so I will try to be quick. This was actually our most recent project. So we talked about assemblage for a little while, but then I also kind of tied it into more mixed media because this was a purchase head, and so it was kind of like just an introduction to like, hey, you don't have to work in one material. You can put multiple materials together. You can use things in alternative fashion. So I had these heads, and I taught them all different techniques first and materials first for this one project. So we did paper making, we did wire work, plaster gauze, sculpt-a-mold, paper mache. There's one more. Oh, and then Duralar with a heat gun. So then they had to, after testing all that out and doing little mini versions of things, then they had to incorporate at least 4 techniques from the semester. Even though it's not a final, it was like, this is the one right before the final. So, into their piece. And the whole concept behind this project was behind the facade. So the concept was that in the front, which didn't have to look like a face, the heads actually have like a flat front. So they could have done, a poetry on the front. They could have done a scene. It didn't have to look like a face at all. So the facade, the front, was supposed to be what they show normally. And then everywhere else, they were supposed to express like kind of what really goes on in their head or behind the facade. So I love this. Like, I just was like, you didn't buy that at first glance from across the room. And I came over and she made it. It was made with wire, and I believe she did paper, plaster craft. This is sculpt-a-mold. This is actually everyone for their practice, just to help things out for paper making. After we made the paper, I had them then press it onto a face mold. And then that way, if they wanted to have a face on their project, they had something to work with. And so this was the paper. So you'll see on a couple of them they did that, and a couple they didn't. Then I'll explain what's going on here with embroidery. So you'll see some embroidery, and you'll actually see some knit and crochet. I was talking for a little while, and I think Instagram might cut that out when I go to post it on Instagram. So embroidery. So I did a whole fibers and fabrics kind of unit. Instead of just saying, all right, everyone, we're going to batik and call it a day, and that's it. I wanted them to explore all the possibilities with fibers and fabrics and what you could do, more than just one thing. So I did a little introduction to fibers and fabrics, just talking about how it's nowadays we're, crafts versus fine art, and busting into the fine art realm. We have a lot of fiber, and fabrics, kind of like Deidre Shearer, who, does the embroidery, and it looks almost like a painting. It's just incredible. So I did a quick intro, but then they had to break into committees and research one of, I think it was 6, I'm going to sneeze, excuse me, 6 materials techniques. So we had, one was an embroidery group, and another one was like a natural dyeing and sewing group, and there was like a fabric printing and patterns group, and knit and crochet, and batik, and coiling and weaving. No one chose coiling and weaving for the project. So after they presented their findings to the class, they kind of taught one another. Maybe they had to incorporate how-to tutorial videos, not by them, they could find them. And then they had to choose what they wanted to use for the project. So a lot of people did embroidery, and I was totally surprised, and I had like limited supplies because I had no idea that so many people would want to do it. So here's some of the embroidery. Sorry. I get so excited. This was really fun, just doing this new class. And there will be more embroidery along the way, and also you'll see some knit and crochet. Okay, so I will explain the comfort clay jars. Everyone was asking about these. So what I had the students do, I had filmed a video about these before they even painted them, and I just, for some reason, I did it on my iPad, and I could not get it to post because it was my school iPad. So, but here we go. So I had them first reflect on, it was a worksheet, so I'll be putting that on TPT at some point. It was a worksheet. We explored our circle of trust. What is the circle of trust? What does that mean? And who is in our circle? And they had to write why that person or people, were in their circle. And then they had to come up with some type of symbol to represent those people. And it was more than just a happy face. We had to really explore what this symbol means, and, just have something that represents those people. And then I taught them how to make a pinch pot. We put them together so it was a hollow ball. And then we cut at a slant. This was thanks to Whitney at Mom's Art, because she did this with Sgraffito. And I just love that easy lid idea, because usually I teach ceramics, and I'm a little bit more complicated with like flanges and stuff, and this was just perfect for the class because 3D Studio is actually, you don't have to have anything. There's no prerequisite. This could be your only class that you take for art. So I have varying levels in this class. So then you had to just decorate the circle, the sphere, with all your circle of trust people, and then inside was supposed to be painted to represent you, and it was being protected by your circle of trust. So we called them comfort clay jars, and they were made with air dry clay just for ease. I didn't want to worry about air bubbles in 3D Studio. I do that with ceramics. The concept is that if they like working 3D, they can move on to ceramics. So here's another behind the facade. She's so cute. She was like, I'm interactive. She won an Artistic Excellence Award for this piece. Fantastic. She went a little further. She said, Miss Sexton, I'm going to pause. She said, Miss Sexton, I really want to show how most people put on a tough exterior, but inside they're inherently good. And her idea was so well developed. I love this. This is what I want. I want students to be like, hey, but I have this idea. And I'm like, yeah, go with it. This is fantastic. She made these out of the wire. Paper mask, painted it. She made it so it could go. This is all Sculptamold. Just so, this girl, love it. 3D is her thing. I mean, she was fantastic in my other art courses, but I just think that she works so well with three-dimensional stuff. So here's another comfort clay jar with that great texture for the tree. And there's a cute bunny on here. So another one, so cute. I love these. This was the fiberfill painting project that I did. So for these, this project actually came from, I believe it was United Art and Ed. And I always wanted to try it because it just looked fun. It just looked like a really fun thing to do, and you could get pretty creative with it. So you just take acrylic paint and fiberfill, and you not too much acrylic, you mix your color and you work it in. You have to really work it in with your fingers. The kids are doing that for a few days. And then you use a low temp hot glue gun to create a masterpiece on canvas. And I love this one. I know that, I believe that she meant for this to be like, this is a moon, and it was like this like kind of fairy looking kind of sky. But I love this, like, it's so, it could also be so abstract. And I just love this little boop in the center. She got some compliments. These were the vision board books from the beginning of the semester. I think I explained these already, but instead of just regular vision boards, which I did in Exploring Art, I had students in 3D make them 3D with using a book. So we had these books. Most of these were all up like this. I don't know, this must have fallen down. Here's another fiberfill painting. And he was not pleased with it, but when you look at it, especially through the camera, I love this. And here's another one, so cute. She brought that home to work on it extra. This is by that student with the behind the facade with the horns. She won down there, that one right here. And I just adore this. Fantastic. It's another vision board book. So abstract. This piece right here I have to get back. Everything this kid makes. He's the same artist here. Love it. He finds a lot of his inspiration from music. And you'll see later, hopefully if I get to it in my video, I'm talking too much. He, even one of my condensation is leaving, like trails. He's always inspired by music. He plays guitar. And I just really dig what he does. It's very thoughtful. It looks haphazard to some, but to me it's just so thoughtful. I just adore it. This color, that's great. Here's a embroidery and dyeing, fabric dyeing piece, so she put two together for her piece. I love this. And she went really big with this one. She didn't know what she wanted to do, and I said, you know what, that's okay. I feel like you could handle it. Just make all kinds of colors and just go. And I think she really did well. Here was from our paper sculpture unit in the beginning of the semester. So we explored all different types of paper manipulation. And then they had to do something relief or in the round or hanging. There's another fiber. I gotta quicken up this pace. Another fiber. Another fantastic vision board book. Look at this. I warned you we were going to spend some time here. Okay. More. Fantastic. Yay. Cover clay jar. Behind the facade. More embroidery. So this student already knew how to crochet, so she did this for her project. But she did challenge herself, I think, a little bit. It was, I think this, she said this is the biggest one she made. I can't remember. And she actually helped this student who never crocheted before. So I was really enjoying that, the student helping the student. Here's another comfort clay jar. Love these. Yay. Fantastic. Here's it behind the facade. So we used plaster to cast her hand and make it in this shape so that it went on the head. And then I made slip out of air dry clay, just testing it out to see if we could cast it. It shrunk like beyond belief. I just could not believe it. So then we had to like pull out this like alien creepy hand, and then she had to add clay to it. But she did really well in the end. it worked out pretty well. Still, it goes along the form of the head, which is what we wanted. Another comfort clay jar, and embroidery with a little bit of dye. This one's like, she worked on this up until the last second before the show. This student always is so thoughtful in everything that she does. I mean, even just with the value here, you know, with this like scaling petal look, and then all this up here, just magnificent. So they were allowed to use other stuff from the semester. So some of them used the fiberfill. And this student, I mean, she rocked the Duralar technique. That was hard. Like, it's hard to like manipulate in the heat, and she just so dedicated to getting that to work for her. I loved that. Yay. Oh, I hope some of you are staying. Okay, so here are some watercolors from Art 2. So for watercolor, originally I was, the way I usually hold my lessons is, you know, I demonstrate, and then everyone has to do some practice, and then there's a project concept, and you use the techniques, or some or all, to create. And for the watercolor, I was going to have them do magic realism, and I just found that some of them were just really being blocked. It was not, they weren't connecting. So then this was our last project for the art show, and so I said, you know what, just pick some kind of concept that we've already done. So you could do portrait or self-portrait or still life. You could do an animal, or landscape, because we had already done all those things. So a lot of them were like, yes, and they did animal. But then some of them went in the other direction, and I was really pleased with that. This is actually not my students' work. These are from, I believe, Art 1, from one of our other art teachers. She was substituting this year for a teacher out on maternity leave. So this was for Art 1. It was interesting to see the different stuff that is done. I love this. Look. Art 1. So these are great. And then these are more watercolors from my Art 2 class. And down here is a pastel, a couple pastels from Art 1. Great texture. This was just a piece turned in by a student for the show. It is open to anyone who wants to turn stuff in, so she turned this in. It's nice to see kids doing stuff outside of class. So here are more pieces. It's kind of like a Mod Podge pieces. So oh, my finger's not really pointing. I think these are Art 1 or Exploring Art from the other teacher. And that is another pastel. And that is just a piece turned in by a student from fall, an Art 3 student, and she just wanted to turn something else in for the show. It was great. Look at all the compliments she got. And this animal project, watercolor. I did Mrs. T. Fox vectors, and it went pretty well. I think I need to spend a little bit more time on craftsmanship with just flat painting. Color mixing looks really fantastic. But I just chose like a select few for the art show. Display space is a hot commodity. These are from my Art 2. This is from the beginning of the semester. We did line work. We learned about pen and ink techniques. And first they had to do a still life, and then they had to choose an animal. It used to be I just did still life, but I made them smaller this time so that then they could choose something to do. And animals really, I think, lend themselves to, when you're learning a new technique, I think that it's, you know, animals are really helpful to render using that new technique. These are from my Exploring Art class. So I'm going to explain in another video. Okay, so these are, I do a fractured memory project. So we talk about how our memories often get distorted, and usually it's the feeling, and there's a lot of movement, and it's like skippy when you remember something. So this was actually after they totally studied color. Color's my thing, and I just, you know, you're not gonna have a class with me without me saying to you, don't just use what the man gave you in the bottle. So we went over the color wheel and all the different variations of color that, you know, mixing. And then they had to use that to kind of express the feeling that they had of a memory, and they'd use the image to represent the memory, and then they could use either starburst, circles, or contour continuation to fracture the memory and then paint differently within those fractures. This kid, I mean, it just took forever, like, and I just loved it because every color was so specific. I mean, he mixed. It was fantastic. And then this one I also really, I mean, they're all great. I just love this because she was playing with, you know, day, night. And this one, just the colors are so fun. So I was really happy with that. And then down here we have personal freestyle mandalas. So I do teach them a little bit about mandalas. And then we talk about chakra mandalas and how usually with illuminated chakra mandalas you work on black paper and bring energy into the light. And then I had them incorporate as like images about them. So you'll see they're like personal. Some of them are designed, but the colors had to represent them. And this kid, I know this is the same student, and I know that I remember hearing him explain this to a student in class, that he actually like mirrored, I believe there were question marks or something, to come up with this pattern. And just that kind of thoughtfulness in an exploring art class was just amazing. Like, I'm just so proud of them. And this was all because, you know, most of the projects I try to make them personal and authentic, and I think that really helps. This is from Art 2. We explore flesh tones, and we talk about how flesh is not a color, it's a palette. So first I forced them to, this actually used to be in my Art 3 class, and now with the whole AP change, I'm moving some things from Art 3 to Art 2, and just editing just some of our lineup of things, just some of the curriculum and the scope and sequence. And so I forced them to do hands and feet because everyone always avoids hands and feet. And after we go over all the flesh tones, this was in color pencil, so this was after the color pencil intro where they had to do all these scales and explore layering color. You know, just because when you use black, especially on skin tones, it grays it out. And so that's why I like to do skin with color pencil, because then it teaches them, no, black is not only the way you get your shade in color pencil. You actually get rich tones with like blues and cold tones and just layering. So it's a really great pairing, I feel, when you do flesh with color pencil. So they had to do hands and feet, and then they had to do a self-portrait. And there were some other criteria with the self-portrait. Here's more. Fantastic. She won artistic excellence for this. And she even, like, you know, took acetate and colored it and like took pictures of herself through it so that she could see what would happen to her skin tones and to everything when, you know, you looked through that color. So it was like shattered glass. So much dedication. I just was really happy. And for Art 2, that was all of these. I was very happy with how they took on these things that were in Art 3 and they're just soaring with them. I mean, it's almost like she glazed using color pencil, which is phenomenal. This was so fun. I love the whimsy. I love the incorporation of personality. Fantastic. So happy. I can't keep zooming in on all these. I have pictures of stuff, and maybe I'll do like an end of the year something. Here's the pen and ink. We did line work, pen and ink. I think I showed these on a live video, so I'm going to move on so I can get moving. Here's for watercolor. He's the one that chose magic realism to still do. There's a lion like eating a moon, and he becomes the sun. So cool. This one, when she told me this idea for her project, I immediately felt it, and she totally captured it with her painting. I was so pleased. We talked about perspective and just how in the background, you know, she didn't have to worry about getting detail with the people. Just like a hint, like a nod to the fact that there's a crowd. And she really achieved that with the watercolor. A lot of fun. So much energy. Here's that giraffe. So here's an example of why I need to fix my panels again. So with all the paintings that we do and things on canvases, I need to just drill holes and hang them better. And even with fixing the panels with wood so they can accordion, we do have a leaner. I'll have to figure out something for next year. I have an idea already, so every year we improve. So this was my Art 2's acrylic project. I used to do something totally different, which was a project that I actually adored. And sorry, I'm picking up an award that fell. And it was a whole art therapy unit, and I used to do this art therapy project with trees, and I will probably have that lesson on TBT because I love that lesson. But this year I thought I'd do something different, also because, like I said, I'm moving some Art 3 stuff up, and I used to do landscapes in oil, and in Art 2 we do acrylic, so I thought, hey, let's just give it a shot with acrylic, and I think they did pretty well. The cool thing is too, if you're doing landscapes, a lot of critics, and I've had this happen at like Teen Arts, they don't like to see landscapes by students because they're like, well, was this from life? Is this from their photo? You know, it's not good to work from a photo. Did you pull this from the internet? And it just gives the students a hard time. And I'm thinking like, no, look, they're exploring painting still. Like, where do you want a 15-year-old to go? So I think it worked well for Art 2 because usually Art 2 stuff doesn't go in your portfolio. So I think this is a good solution. And just look at the texture and look the color here, all the attention to color, and she did some glazing to get that hazy kind of dusty look. Just so happy. I love the palette here. There's a few over here. You want artistic excellence, and it keeps falling down, but he got it. Look at this. She worked so hard and long on this one, and look at this. This has a lot of layers of paint on it. It keeps falling down. And she did a lot of layers too, just to get that sky and water right. And I was very happy that she kept going with it. Okay, more. So in Art 3, we go over perspective, and then also sighting method, so that then they are doing observational perspective. And they could have used charcoal, graphite, or both. And we'll go over why both in a second. So here's, the only two of them went into the show. But there's the reflections, and it's just amazing. Look at this. Love how the windows are reflecting in here. So much attention to detail. I love this project. I think, you know, I remember doing something like this when I was in a portfolio prep class when I was a youngin', so I like to do this project. So charcoal and graphite, you know, with graphite being so shiny when you try to get really dark, I teach in Art 3 how to manipulate with like carbon sketch pencils and graphite and charcoal to get those darks, but also get the subtle values. And over here are more of those. So this is like the still life, like this should go in your portfolio. Still life, look at the reflections. And I think they do really well. We set it up differently. Look at this, that fabric. Teaching fabric over the years, there's some tips and tricks that I have under my belt now, and I think it really helps the kids because it really looks like fabric. So we had our auction with a bloom theme. Some of the pieces didn't get bid on, but that's okay, that happens. It's fun to do it this way. I used to do pick a piece, and we sold tickets for like so cheap, and we don't only make like maybe a couple of dollars on a painting. So this way at least we had starting bids at 10, which I don't understand, like, why did you not bid on this? And this is one of my favorites by this student. This was her summer piece from last summer, and she doesn't like it, but I love it. Okay, so over here we had two student spotlights, senior spotlights this year. So here is Alina's, and you get a whole panel full to yourself, so there's more on the other side. You get a whole blurb about you, what your plans are, and you get to do anything. So I've had students who pass through lights and, you know, whatever, and she got to put chairs and tables and all her pieces, everything. She took 3D Studio with me. There's her comfort clay jar. She had her sketchbooks here so that you could just take a look, which is really, you know, I said you could put your sketchbook. This is her thing. I mean, sketchbooks are just, her sketchbooks make me just so happy. She just made these pieces for the show. This one and this one. She's growing. She's evolving. I love it. This was all from either AP or Art 3. All here. This was the oil landscape. And over here, more, and there's something falling. So she works really well with collage, with just layering paint. This one falling down again. This was the project I used to do in watercolor and Art 2. So she put some Art 2 stuff up here too. We used to do like just eyes, but like for the soul it was called windows. And they had to do an endangered animal and someone they know. There's more to that lesson, and that'll probably be on TPT too. So that's Alina. This was her behind the facade. She used all kinds of techniques. Fantastic. So we had another student spotlight, but she took it down right away because she was so used to art show being broken down right away. Right at 7:30 she started, and she was halfway done by the time we were like, no, no, no. And she was like, nah, I want to bring everything home anyway. She actually has a business. I'll try and tag her if this is going on Instagram. I don't know how this is going to work. But she's doing phenomenal stuff. Commission work. I mean, just everyone's eating it up because she is so incredibly talented. So that'll be really great to see her grow. Here's another. This was just a piece done by an Art 3 student who's going into AP next year. She did this on the side. Fantastic piece. This is that student that uses music as inspiration, plays instruments, and there's his title. I can't remember what he said. That means chord progression? I don't know. Joel, you'll have to tell me. Okay. And here's one of the oil paintings from Art 3 this year. So instead of doing landscapes, I had them do still lives, but they had, it was called groupings. So they had to group like objects together of their own choice and then do painting. So there's, yeah, there we go. So there's more. So there's the oil groupings. These books in oil. Sushi. And this was fun doing this photo shoot with this student. Shoes. Flowers. Dead flowers. So I love seeing them explore oil. They get so frustrated in the beginning. It's just really neat to see them succeed once they deal with all the troubles in the beginning. This was really nice. I love all the work with the reflections of these beads. And then in Art 3 we had their final was a self-portrait, but it had to be mixed media. They could use anything, and there was like other requirements on there. And I mean, she even used gold leaf, which I thought was really cool. And it was nice to see them working with how certain materials can work together. A lot of them, they just did oil, so they were like, ooh, I wonder if I could do oil. And then they had to like discover, you know, can I glue on the oil? Can I, you know, how long is it going to take it to dry? And, you know, can I put acrylic on oil? And we had to have all these conversations about the compatibility of materials and, you know, how to kind of, you know, choose what materials you want to portray a concept instead of always being stuck with one material. But this was, she did a photo shoot, I believe, of herself in the tub for this piece. And here we have this one. I love the patterning. I love that, you know, she got things smaller as they went back in space. It really creates depth here. And then, of course, the color contrast is incredible. And I adore the watercolor over this kind of collage work and how it drips down on the face in the perfect places. This is like one of my favorite pieces by this artist. And here we have another one. I believe there's like oil in here and pen, and I'm not even sure. A lot of materials. And he actually got Best in Show for this. It was hard this year. It's not just me that picks. And we really had to have a conversation, the judges, and it was a hard choice, but I don't know. I think that this is pretty good, so a lot of compliments too. So Best in Show. And we have this one. This one was really cool because, you know, when I always go into like, you could do this and you could do that whenever I introduce lessons, and this one listened. I said, you could cut it and stitch it and do collage work behind it. So she listened. That was cool. And look at this. These are photo transfer. They learned photo transfer in art too, so it was really cool to see them use techniques from other courses. And I just adore how, you know, the play with the honeycomb, but it's a dress, you know, something wrapped around, and the bees. And this is like by far one of her best portraits, her self-portraits. So proud. This was a surprise. This student really is so talented, but this clouds, like, look at these clouds. And she really worked hard on this piece. This is by far one of her best pieces as well. So proud. Okay. So we invite the middle school. This will be quick. Like I said, it's our 14th year, and we invite Mr. Derby to come, and we hang up all the work, and it's been really fun. I love seeing the middle school work. I love Peepin, who's going to maybe be with me in the future. He does some amazing stuff with middle school. I just cannot get over the quality of what he does. He has 6th, 7th, and 8th. This was the Best in Show for his group. I mean, that's like high school quality work. I just cannot get over how amazing. He's amazing. Everyone loves Mr. Derby, as do I. It's just fantastic stuff. So I want to go really quickly. Sorry, Mr. Derby, but I didn't teach these, so I don't know. This, I commented, I told this kid, like, since you're not my student, I could tell you this is my favorite mask. Love these masks. He just does so much dedication. You can see a lot of attention to detail. And these are all the students. Like, he, you know, he has so many. He has all 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade. But it's just really cool to see all the work. I mean, look at this. This won an artistic excellence, I believe. Yeah. Just, it fell. See the tape? So here's more. He does this really cool piece. I think it has to be like a holiday theme on dark paper. And those are just, you know, it's gratifying, that technique, when you use pastel on that paper. And here, I love these. He does these Andy Warhol kind of inspired, I think, like prints. And what I like is, it's not just print. They explore 2-color prints and just different techniques of texture and varying color. And it just amazes me that these are, I mean, these are 8th grade. You know, they're the oldest of the middle school, but still, it's just incredible technique happening here. I love this one, like this splatter with the Fanta. It's so cool. Yeah, these are great. I love these every year. I commented on this one. I really love the texture in the Bronx Tale one. And more. And down here, more. more, and more. That's my son's right here. He did Zelda and Link. That's like a thing in my house. Breath of the Wild. So, of course he would choose that. Just skimming through. I love this. So obviously he's very, you know, open to alternative concepts. You know, just like that other student with Behind the Facade is like, hey, you know, it's kind of like it. Can I do this? Can I do this? And, you know, we are teachers are like, yeah. Are you kidding? You don't want to conform, but you still want to go extra? Fantastic. I love this project. I used to do something similar, but I stopped. When I started noticing that he was doing it so well, I was like, all right, I'll do something else. It was a little different of a project. I like this one. I commented on this one because of how the student handled the space around. But these are really fun. I think the kids probably really like doing their name above their head and like just going all in for it's like an authentic project where you're really just exploring your likes and dislikes, which is important at this age. And then there's these are 6th grade, can you believe it? And then all these I'm rushing through because I have like 2 seconds before the end of my prep. So these, my kids were like, look at that. You know, they love all the when they came to the show, they love all the cartoon characters. Some of them were like anime and Marvel. And then last but not least, these are from my group as well. These were exploring art. And we do artist star books. So they have to design, they have to research an artist. And then they have to design the star book in the style of the artist. So there's 3 different pages per spread. And when you open it, it's kind of like cool. It looks like a star. You have to design the cover. And there's like criteria for certain information. So it's really fun because it's like an art history, but it's also good for working with craftsmanship and design and being more intentional. Instead of just picking colors you like, what should you pick? What should you do? I had a student even explore, like, for the Jackson Pollock one. I don't know if it's here. He splatter painted. And then for another famous art project, they had to choose a famous artwork, and we talked about subtractive and additive, and we also talked about foreground, midground, background. So they had to carve away for the background and leave as is, but with detail for the midground, and then add for the background. And this is all using air dry clay. And then, you know, this was after they did their color unit, so then they got to, you know, they already know about color mixing. So then that way they were successful when they were trying to work with the colors. Love this one. There's a McGree over there backwards. Van Gogh. I think she should really feel proud about this. I love this one. Look at this one. And the attention to color, like I said, like mixing, being specific with color is so important. This is really great. Like, you know, you could really feel like this is carved in. This is as is, and this is the additive for foreground, midground, background, midground, foreground. So really, I enjoyed teaching this class. It's a good group. So that's it. I don't know if you stay till the end. That's okay. I really enjoyed talking about the show. I enjoyed talking about all the lessons. This is a hot mess. We're about to break it down. It's sad. I mean, but you know what? Usually every year we take it down right away. So it's nice that we were able to leave it up for people to see and to come compliment. It was a really great night. Couple things I forgot. I also had running videos during the show. So over there on that screen, I had like all the chairs set up, and there was running videos of the iMovies that my students made of their artist statements, a flip through of or viewing of their vision boards and vision board books and their autobiographical zines from Art 2. I think there's one actually autobiographical zine from Art 2 here, yeah. So you had, you know, we went over text, good text and art, and That was from early in the semester. So I had that video running here, and then on the other side I had our video running continuously of our memory project. We did the memory project this year, so we had that video, the thank you video from them, running continuously. I also forgot to show you photography because it was on the window, but these were fantastic. We even had one of these win an Artistic Excellence Award. Over here was an activity, so that's why there's one here. We had a couple activities happening that night too. So the photography, I'm going to show you the one that won. I'm running out of time. But these are great. I love the texture. You know, these, she's really getting a lot of really cool, she does this cool project where they project onto people and then take pictures, which is really fun and creative, and it teaches kids, like, you know, there's a lot of possibilities. Here it is. There's the one. So this was, try to get close because the window's messing with it. So that's the one. I got the award. It's been a great year. This was, I think, our biggest show ever. And every year, I'm just going to keep striving to do more and do better. The TPT for some of these lessons and for other lessons that I mentioned, and for handouts and things, that will be up probably midsummer at least. You know, it's something I've always wanted to do, and with all the comments on stuff that I've been posting on Instagram, I think it's time. This is my 16th year teaching. Signing off.